Okay, I'm going to go ahead and read this through our little video because then I can also scroll through um, the whole website so that you can see what to pay attention to and what not to pay attention to. So I have opened the document. You will want to do the same. I notice that there's a lot of information up here. So remember that since this is on the internet, there's going to be extra information that you don't need to really take a look at or read. I do notice at the top, it does have Trent Hammer as the writer of this article, and it kind of tells you who he is. It also tells us when the article was written, which is really important so that we can analyze if the information is current or not. Now, I do notice also there's a place that says advertiser disclosure. I can skip that. I don't need that information. The name of the article is Understanding the Basics of Owning Stock. So I know that that is where I want to start. A reader wrote in with a good question recently. What does it mean to own stock in a company? Do you own a piece of that company? Are you just gambling that you think a company's value will go up or down? I guess I really don't understand the stock market. Let's take a simple walk through what a stock is, what owning one means, and why someone would want to own a share of stock in a company. Stock definition. The word stock refers to a share of ownership in a particular company. So what does it mean to own stock in a company? If you own a stock, you are an owner of a very small fraction of that company. Let's take Exxon, for example. Exxon has 4.27 billion shares of stock outstanding, meaning that they have divided ownership of their company into 4.27 billion pieces. Owning a single share would mean that you own 0.000000198% of Exxon. That's a very tiny fraction. But Exxon is a huge company, so that tiny fraction has some value. Notice here it says featured offers. This is extra, we don't need. Right now, that one share of Exxon stock is worth $68.50 as of this writing. Shares are traded on an open market, meaning buyers and sellers can both make offers. Sales only occur when buyer and seller agree on a price. So that $68.50 is the amount that someone agreed to sell a share of Exxon stock for, and someone else agreed to buy it for. In other words, that's the value that the public estimates a single share of Exxon stock to be worth. Currently, Exxon's stock is worth $68.50 per share. And thus, with 4.27 billion shares outstanding, that means Exxon has a market capitalization of $292.5 billion. Market capitalization is the estimate of the total value of the company. Total number of shares out there multiplied by the per stock value. Okay, this is my piece. That means if you wanted to buy Exxon as a company, you would have to have $292.5 billion to buy that company. That's a lot of money. Okay, so now why own stocks? 1, stocks pay dividends. A dividend is a piece of the company's profit that it pays out to each shareholder every 3 months. Continuing with our example, Over the last 4 financial quarters, Exxon has paid out an average dividend of 86 cents per share. If you held 100 shares of Exxon stock for the last 12 months, that's $344 in dividends. Okay, I'm going to do my little piece here. A dividend is basically the company taking their profit, the money that they made, and giving you a very small piece of it, depending on how many shares you have. For each share, you get 86 cents. Notice that it says the last 4 financial quarters. A year is split into 4 financial quarters, and a company has to give their financial information every 3 months to their shareholders. And at that time, they pay their dividends. Okay, number 2. You own a piece of whatever would be earned if the company decided to close up shop. Exxon has a book value of $45.23 per share. That means if Exxon decided to sell out, the shareholders would get paid out at that price for their shares. It wouldn't recoup the value of the stock purchase, but it's something. Number 3, larger shareholders can gain some voting rights when it comes to making decisions about the company. In our example, an individual shareholder owns such a small portion of the company that if they allowed each such holder to have voting rights, nothing would get done with the company. Thus, there's usually some threshold that people have to cross before they have voting rights and get to participate in corporate decision making. With some companies, that comes in the form of special voting shares where ownership of only those shares allow you to actually vote. In other companies, if you own a small amount, you vote by proxy, meaning you assign someone else to vote on your behalf. What I have noticed about companies, this is my piece, is that if you own, say, 10% of the company or 25% of the company, then you have an opportunity to vote when they make decisions on what they want to do with the company. You have to be a larger shareholder to have votes. Otherwise, it would be like the whole group, thousands and thousands of people trying to make one decision, which is really hard to do. So only the people that own a lot of shares get to vote. Okay, next section. What does the total value add up to? The stock market is a free-for-all of trading where buyers and sellers can quote whatever prices they want. The value of a stock is whatever the buyer and seller agree on as a fair price. And the value is a recently agreed upon value between an individual buyer and an individual seller. Other buyers and sellers then use this as an indicator when deciding the value of the next trade. If a company has good news, then their stock value may go up. If something bad happens, it may go down. If conditions are neutral, the price will fluctuate a bit, but stay fairly static. Static means stays the same, even. The chaos you see on the floor of stock exchanges is basically the chaos of tons of these trades happening at once, with people running around trying to make it happen. Much of the activity happens electronically too. Ideally, you hope to resell stocks at a higher value than when you bought it. That decision point, when to sell, is the topic of countless investment books. So for example, if we had bought Exxon at $5 and it was now trading at $52, we would want to trade it because we make money on that. We get to keep the extra. Okay, how to buy stock. Many individual stock buyers and sellers go through a stock broker, which you can do in person or online. Online stock brokerage is an organization that actually participates in those exchanges. An individual like yourself goes to a stockbroker and pays them a fee to use their resources to get that stock for you. They might own it themselves and be willing to sell it to you, or they might have to go buy it from someone else. Either way, your fee pays for this service. Now, my little piece, there are now ways that you can do this all on your own. There are apps and websites out there where you can actually go in and buy and trade stocks all by yourself, so you don't have to pay those fees. We'll talk more about those later in the unit. Okay, last piece. So what's a mutual fund? A mutual fund is just a collection of stocks. A typical mutual fund has their stocks chosen by a fund manager, and the fees with that fund go to pay the fund manager's salary and the salaries of anyone working for the manager. An index fund is a mutual fund without an active manager. It operates based on a clearly specified set of rules that do not require active intervention. The fees for an index fund are much lower. Some people prefer having an actual person manage the fund. As for me, I'll take the index fund almost every time. Okay, my little piece. So a mutual fund or an index fund is a collection of stocks. So for example, if you are concerned about the environment, you can buy into a mutual fund that has stocks from different companies that work to protect our environment. So you're not just buying stock in one company, you're buying stocks in a lot of companies that work to protect the environment. There are also mutual funds that are created for energy. So you can purchase a mutual fund that buys stocks in gas and electric and wind and solar energy companies. We'll talk more about mutual funds in future lessons. Okay, the last part of the article, I wish you luck in your investing. Once you have this basic info in hand, there's almost infinite amount of material to learn about the stock market. Okay, make sure you jot down some ideas if you have questions and we can go over them in class.